Let's talk about climate change. Climate change has been a controversial topic for years, with differing opinions on all ends of the political spectrum. Wherever your stances lie, this video is here to show you the reality of climate change. It is here, it is real, and there's something we can all do about it. Climate change refers to significant changes in global temperature, precipitation, wind patterns, and other measures of climate that have occurred over the past several decades. The seas are rising, the economy is being negatively impacted, and the beautiful nature we enjoy and take for granted every day is being threatened. The main cause for climate change is in fact humans, specifically the burning of fossil fuels such as oil and coal. These non-renewable resources emit greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, such as carbon dioxide. Other human activities such as agriculture and deforestation are also contributing to this proliferation of greenhouse gases that cause climate change. Through this mini documentary, we are going to be showing you 4 locations within the United States specifically, which are being impacted directly from climate change. From the California wildfires to the Florida Everglades, we're here to show you the reality of human impact on the environment. So without further ado, I present to you California.
The wildfires raging throughout the state.
Which has burned more than 250,000 acres.
Yeah, Chris, hey, the smoke is very thick and it's so hard to see. There's fire everywhere.
This is about 5 miles southwest of Loma Rica, where 3,000 people were evacuated overnight because of the willow fire.
I'm 55 years old and I've never been homeless.
It's getting smokier and smokier. The skies are orange, the sun is red.
Look at that orange and red skies, smoke blocking the sun. Some saying it feels apocalyptic.
California wildfire records date back to 1932, yet the 10 largest fires California has experienced have been in the past 20 years. 2018 and 2020 were big years for wildfires in California, burning over 2.3 million acres in combination. That number accounts for over half of the fires in the state's history. California, of course, isn't the only state suffering from wildfires, but it does account for almost half of them in the United States alone. However, contrary to popular belief, climate change doesn't start these fires. 90% of all fires in the United States are started by people, which could include campfires being left unattended, burning of debris, downed power lines, discarded cigarettes, and acts of arson. And the remaining 10% is started by natural causes, such as lightning and lava. Each year, the number of wildfires increase at an alarming rate. What causes areas to become more susceptible to wildfires is increasing heat, changing rain and snow patterns, shifts in plant communities, and other climate-related changes. These changes to climate have vastly increased the likelihood that fires will start more often and burn more intensely and widely than they have in the past. Change exacerbates the factors that create perfect fire conditions. Due to the changes of lower precipitation and warmer air temperatures, this causes forests and other vegetation to dry. This, in addition with strong winds and decades of fire suppression results, is a dangerous recipe for wildfires. Since the Industrial Revolution in the late 1800s, climate change has been happening. Burning massive quantities of fossil fuels releases carbon dioxide, which traps excess heat in the atmosphere. This has caused global average temperatures to increase approximately 1.8 degrees Fahrenheit, but in California, the temperature has increased by 3 degrees Fahrenheit. This increase in temperature doesn't seem to be slowing down anytime soon. So what's the big deal? 3 degrees in Fahrenheit isn't that big of an increase. Even though it may not seem like much, a little change goes a long way. Hot air, if it's not 100% humidity, is like a thirsty sponge. It soaks up water from whatever it touches, plants, soils, lakes, and rivers. The hotter and drier the air, the more it sucks up, and the amount of water it can hold increases exponentially as the temperature rises. These small increases in temperature contribute to big increases in the intensity with which it pulls out water. Scientists measure the difference between how much water the air holds and how much it could hold with a vapor pressure deficit. If the deficit is high for an extended period of time, soils and vegetation parch, causing droughts and heat spells. In August of 2020, the West, especially California, experienced intense record-breaking heat waves and vapor pressure deficit levels, which caused the major crispening of burnable material. The issue with changing rain and snow patterns is that springtime is coming a lot earlier than recent years, causing plants and soil to dry out faster. Autumn is also becoming much shorter with high temperatures and less precipitation, which this season is supposed to be important as it ends California's fire season. This change has led to a 20% increase in the number of autumn days included in the fire season. In all, the Western fire season has extended by at least 84 days since the 1970s. This is such a drastic change that CAL FIRE, California's Wildfire Protection Service, has publicly stated they no longer consider there to be a wildfire season because the season is now basically the entire year. The bottom line of the California wildfires is that climate change has increased fire risk. Whether the ignition is man-made or comes naturally, the chances of a big fire spawning is much higher than it would be if climate change were not a factor. Overall, over the past few decades in California, the annual average area burned increased fivefold.
For the next location, let's go way up north to Alaska. Alaska is enormous. With more than 500,000 square miles, it has 17 out of 20 highest peaks in the United States. Its natural monuments are such massive scale that the environment can seem immutable. Still, Alaska's climate is changing thanks to human-caused global warming, and the effects are widespread and sometimes dangerous. In the last 50 years, Alaska has gotten 2.5 Fahrenheit warmer on average. According to the 4th National Climate Assessment, Alaska has been warming twice as quickly as the global average since the middle of the 20th century. Alaska is warming faster than any US states. Alaska's changing environment notes that since 2014, there have been 5 to 30 times more record high temperatures set than record lows. In August of 2019, there was no ice off of Alaska's coastline for 150 miles. In fact, the average amount of ice covering ocean water around Alaska in September has gone down 13% over the last 4 decades, the equivalent of losing a hunk of sea ice the size of Scotland. And climate models shows that by 2050, Arctic waters could be totally ice-free in the late summer. Also, climate change creates the perfect condition for extreme wildfire seasons. Warm weather is arriving sooner and sooner in Alaska, sometimes breaking heat records. Ice and snow are melting earlier in the season too, leaving plant life to dry out and act as tinder for bigger, more destructive fires. Alaskans are already seeing earlier spring snowmelt, widespread glacier retreat, drier landscapes, more insect breakouts, and wildfires because of climate change. Alaska is home to some of the largest glaciers and fastest loss of glacier ice on Earth. With that, it is just not affecting nature but also our economy. Climate change over the long term could also burden Alaska with significant adaptation costs. According to the 4th National Climate Assessment, the cost of the state of a warming climate is projected to range from $3.3 billion to $6.7 billion between 2008 to 2030. The costs in the transportation section alone will be significant. Greater snow and ice melt will lead to increase in transportation cost as ice roads must be replaced with gravel roads. A 2004 report estimated the cost of gravel road on the North Coast of Alaska at as much as $2.5 million per mile. Now, let's take a hike over to Montana. As for Montana National Glacier Park, it is losing its glaciers because of the climate change. Glacier really doesn't have a reputation as a hot place, but because of increasing hot days, it's becoming a health hazard for unprepared hikers. 90 degrees Fahrenheit used to be a rare, but now is very common thing. In 2020, West Glacier experienced 11 days that were hot like that. Such hot days can pose dangers for hikers on shadeless trails with limited access to water, like the Loop Trail and the Highline Trail. Climate change also degrades air quality, which can cause negative impact for people participating in strenuous outdoor activities like hiking or bicycling. Smoke from increasingly frequent and severe wildland fire can intensify respiratory and cardiopulmonary illnesses. Additionally, longer growing seasons, warmer temperatures, and elevated carbon dioxide levels have increased pollen levels, worsening allergies and asthma. Climate change is expected to increase the range of ticks and mosquitoes in the US, thereby increasing the number of people exposed to the disease that they transmit. Increased summer drought will likely increase cases of West Nile virus in Montana. Longer droughts, warmer temperature, and minimal changes in average annual participant favor both the virus and the primary vector mosquitoes.
For our fourth and final location, we're going to take it all the way down south to the Sunshine State. The state of Florida hosts the third largest population of any U.S. state and operates the country's fourth largest state economy. When thinking about the effects of climate change on Florida, most people point to the increasing frequency and power of the hurricanes that have always ravaged the state. While the impact of these storms cannot be understated, only paying attention to environmental disasters often impedes our ability to see the undoubtedly subtle but equally as dangerous potential effects of climate change over the next century. One such effect is the salinization of Florida's most diverse ecosystem, Everglades National Park. Florida is home to the Everglades National Park, one of the most unique and diverse ecosystems the United States has to offer. The Everglades span an area of 7,800 square miles, covering much of the southwest corner of the peninsula. The region is home to over 360 different bird species, 27 different species of snake, as well as numerous endangered species, most notably the Florida panther and the American alligator. In addition to operating as a safe haven for these animals, the Everglades provide vital and necessary functions that allow Floridians to survive comfortably. The wetlands produce 1/3 of the drinking water consumed by the state, naturally filtering the abundant fresh water used to replenish the Biscayne Aquifer, the primary source of drinking water for the entirety of southern Florida. Much of the irrigation for the state's flourishing agricultural industry also comes from the Everglades. Steadily rising global sea levels threaten the Everglades' ability to provide these functions. Most alarming will be the increase in the salinity of the fresh water that so many people in Florida rely on. The EPA reports that the sea surrounding the Florida coast is rising at a rate of 1 inch per decade. At this rate, the EPA predicts that over the next half century, Florida's demand for fresh water will increase by 25%. This estimate is largely due to the fact that the Everglades are only about 3 feet above sea level, and the rising sea is likely to submerge the lowest portions of the Everglades, allowing for much more salt water to enter the ecosystem and make its way upstream to the Biscayne Aquifer. If this happens, the aquifer will no longer be a viable source of fresh water and could potentially result in a devastating water shortage that threatens the welfare of millions of people. Without accessible, affordable drinking water, residents of southern Florida may be forced to find a new place to live. At this moment, you may be feeling overwhelmed by all of this information, and that's okay. The changing climate can be a daunting reality to grasp, and even more daunting to accept. However, man-made climate change is a reality that we all must face head-on together. Many activists and policymakers have already begun efforts to fight climate change. Student activists all over the world have participated in school walkouts, protesting in favor of policies that support a green future. Politicians have begun the fight to transition the energy infrastructure away from fossil fuels towards less harmful energy alternatives. A brighter future is possible. but everyone must understand that they have a role to play. There are numerous small steps that can be taken to limit your own carbon footprint. Buying local produce and animal products, driving less, conserving water, and conserving energy are just a few places to start. In addition to small lifestyle changes, another way to help save these treasured landscapes is to support assistance funds, activists, and community programs that serve the communities most adversely affected by climate change. The California Community Foundation's Wildfire Relief Fund assists California residents who have lost their homes and jobs in the flames with mental health treatment, rebuilding of homes, and finding new jobs. Donating to these funds is a great way to contribute to the rebuilding of the lives of thousands of people. The Alaska Climate Change Impact Mitigation Program, created by the Alaskan Department of Commerce, Community, and Economic Development, was created to assist communities threatened by the effects of climate change. The program conducts hazard impact assessments, develops evacuation and relocation strategies, and constructs emergency shelters for people adversely affected by changing conditions. Supporting and promoting initiatives such as this, whether through donation or simply spreading its message, is important for increasing awareness of the issue. There are also many groups, programs, and initiatives to support Montana's efforts to lessen the effects of climate change. The Local Indigenous Network Collective is a logistical platform that enables Native communities who are underserved and underrepresented to pool resources in the name of protecting Montana's water. Reinvest Montana is a student-run organization whose goal is to achieve the reinvestment of the University of Montana's resources towards climate change mitigation and away from the fossil fuel industry. Supporting and advocating for groups such as these help to spread awareness of the effects of climate change on the most vulnerable communities and increases support for action such as reinvestment. In Florida, legislation has been passed in order to maintain the Everglades' natural state. The Everglades Forever Act was passed in 1994 in order to address the environmental concerns facing the Everglades. This act established the Salinity Network, a team of scientists who monitor the levels of salt water within the ecosystem and determine the best actions to take in preserving the fresh water present in the ecosystem. Supporting politicians who back legislation such as this, legislation that benefits the environment, is key to the effort to mitigate the effects of environmental devastation. There are countless ways to get involved. Talking to friends and encouraging them to research the fight against climate change is a good place to start. Organizations such as 350.org and the Sierra Club provide opportunities to volunteer in activism and environmental cleanup initiatives. Simply supporting a pro-environmental candidate for political office can go a long way in convincing our leadership that this is an issue that needs to be tackled, and fast. We implore you to do whatever you can within reason to support the cause.